Hello and welcome to Mountain Patriot Homestead. Today I had a specific request for a recipe for pot roast, and the one I'm sharing today is going to be not my mama's pot roast, which is wonderful, but it is a adaptation of a Mississippi pot roast. I'm going to show you to start with the very basic of how to make a Mississippi pot roast, but then I'm going to show you how I put a little bit of my own twist to it, which I encourage everyone who is out there in your kitchen, if you find a recipe that you really like, but maybe you want to make it a little bit more of your own, please don't be afraid to adventure and experiment a little. Sometimes those experiments don't work out, but hey, at least you can say you've tried. So today, the Mississippi pot roast that I'm going to be doing is using a chuck roast. Now, you can use a rump roast, you can use an arm roast, whatever type of beef roast that you have. Again, use what you have, and I'm going to show you a little bit today of, even for my Mississippi pot roast, something I had to use because I realized I didn't have one of the simple ingredients for this roast. But I'm going to show you, I used what I had, and you can do the same thing. So whatever type of beef roast that you have, I have a 2.5 pound chuck roast. When we had our last cow harvested, our last steer harvested, we had, because there's only the two of us, we had them cut the roast in half. So you may find a 3, 4, 5 pound roast, and that's fine. You can use the same recipe for that. I just like having a little bit more of the juice left in the end, because then I can turn that into a broth for soup. I can use it for au jus for French dips or whatever. So don't be afraid to use this with a larger roast, but this is a 2.5 pound chuck roast. And let me show you, there's 4 ingredients other than the roast that goes into the basic Mississippi pot roast. The first is just a classic brown gravy mix. And you know, whatever your favorite is, if you have a favorite, just sprinkle that over the top of the roast. Now, of course, like I do in every one, I have to make a mess. I don't know if anybody else out there has this same problem, but I do. Now, the next ingredient should be a powdered au jus mix, just like the classic brown gravy mix is an au jus powder, but I did not have it. But what I did have was some au jus liquid that I had from some French dips that I made recently, and that's why I like having my own homemade, because that way I can just grab that. But this is a concentrate. It's an au jus mix, and it is very concentrated, so I don't even have to use all of that. I've just sprinkled that in there. But if you have the powder, all you would have to do is sprinkle that packet right over the top of it. Now, the next thing I'm going to do is, I know this looks like a ton of butter, but what this is normally you would just put 1 stick of butter in here, which is 1/4 pound. So this is 4 ounces of butter. Even though it looks like a lot more, it's not. I've just got it sliced up. You could, if you've got just a stick of butter, just throw that in here just directly on top of it. You don't have to cut it up. You don't melt it or anything. You just put it in there. But because I buy the butter in big, huge rolls, that's like 2 pound butter rolls, I have to slice mine off. But this was only 1/4 pound, which is the equivalent of 1 stick of butter. Now, I know some of you are trying to write this down. If you'll go down in the description below, I will have the recipe written out, the ingredients written out. I won't put the full recipe, but if you'll look down there, I'll have the ingredients for you. And the next thing is some, and I'm gonna mispronounce this all the dickens I know, peperoncini, peppers. I'll spell that out in the description below. I'll even quit trying to say it. But this is 4 or 5 little peppers, and they are wonderful. They don't have much heat at all, but they leave such a wonderful flavor. And there's just a little bit of juice from those peppers. I'm just going to pour some of that in there. Now, you know, sometimes if I have a little extra juice out of that, it comes in a jar. If I have a little extra juice from those peppers, I'll put just a little bit in there. But you don't have to, because as this cooks in the slow cooker, I forgot to tell you, I do have this in my crock pot, and it will be cooking all day. And so you don't have to put any liquid in here, because as the meat cooks, it will release, and the butter will release liquids and make it on its own. And of course the gravy mixes will turn it into a really nice gravy. So that's the very basic ingredients there. It was the 2 mixes, the butter, the pepper on top of the meat. Now I'm going to show you how I add my little twist to it, because I can't totally get away from my mama's recipe. And so the other additions that I add is I like to put in a couple of bay leaves, and I like to put in a teaspoon or 2 of rosemary, because I love rosemary, and to me rosemary just says roast, because Mama always put it in roast, and I love the flavor of rosemary. And then the last, just because I like a little heat, I'm just going to sprinkle a little red pepper on top of it, little chili flakes on top. You don't have to add any of this extra stuff that I just put in there. If you want to just put those very basic, I promise you, it is a delicious roast. So that's it. That last few ingredients that I put in there is just my little extra. If you want to put garlic cloves, if you want to put onions, whatever you like, you can add that to it, but you don't have to for the very basic Mississippi pot roast. Now, all I'm going to do is I'm going to put this in my slow cooker container, and I am going to set it for 6 hours. And well, I'll take that back. I'm going to set it for 8 hours on low. At 6 hours, I'm going to check it and see, because it is a smaller roast, I'm going to check it to see how done it is. If you have a larger roast, it's probably going to take those 8 hours, but at 6 hours, or even 7, if you want to add some chunked up potatoes. I know some people like carrots in it. We don't do cooked carrots here. But if you like potatoes in it, you can add that about the 6th or 7th hour and let them finish cooking out with the roast, and that will be perfect. So I'm going to get this on cooking, and when we get it done, I'll bring you back and we'll take a look. Well, our roast is done, my plate is made, and I did end up cooking it. Remember, I said I was going to set it for 6 hours because it was a smaller roast. I did check it after 6 hours and found that it did need to cook a little while longer. So I just set it for a little over an hour, and while I was doing that, I went on ahead and added some diced up potatoes, put those in there. And so now I have got cornbread and green beans to go with it, and supper is ready. But you can just see how tender that roast is. It's very moist. It's still very hot because I did just get it out of the the pot over there. Now let's just make sure that it's okay. Yes, that those extra ingredients that I told you about, they're in there. So I am tasting the rosemary and the red pepper and the bay leaves. But again, if you want to try it with just the very basic ingredients of the Mississippi pot roast, you can definitely do that, and it is excellent. So I'm encouraging you, if you're wanting to make Sunday dinner, this is a good choice. Or if you're wanting to make it for any day of the week and you can put it in your crock pot, excellent meal. I'm going to get back to mine. Hope y'all come back again real soon. Love y'all. Mountain Patriot Homestead signing out.